Hello again, and welcome back to Module 4, Lesson 1, Getting Organised. So in this session, we're going to talk a bit about planning for your business. So planning isn't always the most fun part of our business, but it's one of the most important things that you can do. So we're going to talk a bit about planning your days, weeks, months, and years. We're going to talk about some long-term planning. We're going to talk about managing your clients' expectations. And we're also going to talk about managing household expectations, because I think that's quite an important one for us freelance mums. So planning your days, weeks, months, and years. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not that great at planning myself, but it's something I've been putting a lot more effort into of late. I do recommend getting an annual planner. This is something that I've done in the last few years. I found it really, really helpful to get that out. And it helps me to remember important things that are coming up. I'm one of those people who, if it's not in my calendar, then it's probably not going to happen. So having a calendar is really helpful. And for me, I like to be able to see the year in front of me. So one of the reasons why that's really important to me as a mum in particular is because school holidays are a really big part of managing my workload. So I try as much as possible to be available for my boys for much of the summer holiday we have here. It's a really long one, and it's quite a lot if you have to work through the summer. So I try and schedule my work around being able to do quite a lot with the boys over the summer, and which means that I have an extended summer break. And then throughout the year, I try and take off 1 week at least over every school holidays. But having the school holidays on my calendar is really helpful. School holidays are always a juggle. So just trying to keep the work to a minimum during those periods. Also just trying to have up there any big deadlines, big events. For me, being a lawyer, and doing quite a lot of court work, I have hearings. So having those blocked on the calendar, we have a calendar for the next few months ahead that's stuck up on our fridge. And that allows not only me to have visibility of what's coming up, but also my husband. So, he puts on his things he has if he's traveling for work, if he's going to have to work late. I put on my travel for work. I put on any events for the boys. So if they've got sports day at school and I want to go to that, I put that on the calendar and make sure that I'm not going to be overscheduled with work on that particular day. Things like that. Anywhere that you can plan. Any days you need to block out and you don't want to work, or you want to keep the work to a minimum, make sure those are on your calendar in front of you. So if somebody says to you, are you able to do this thing this week? You can say, oh, well, that's school holidays. I'm not available that week, but I can do it for you on these dates. I've got availability here and here. So having time blocked out where you're either not available or you'll have limited availability, that's been a really big one for me. As I've got in there too, record any known deadlines. So I quite like to have work deadlines and any big deadlines for me visible. And I also put them into my calendar. So I have them in my my online calendar on my computer, which is synced to my phone. All of this, so same thing with school holidays, everything is also in my electronic calendar online. If I'm on leave, that's in my calendar online. If I'm going away on holiday, any work deadlines, those kind of things, it's in my online calendar. My phone is synced to that. So if I'm out at a meeting and someone says to me, do you have availability? And I'm not in front of my paper calendar or my computer, I can check that on my phone. So I've got all my deadlines and my blocks of unavailability readily accessible so that I can see that, and that just helps me to be organized and not have clashes and that kind of thing, not take on too much work, and certainly not take on too much work at times when I have family commitments. If you like having a physical thing you can carry around with you, you might like to buy a weekly planner or diary that you can have a physical copy of. I print out a calendar. My annual calendar is just a printed one from a free website online. I like to have them month by month, where you can just buy one of those ginormous big ones from a stationery shop that has the whole year on it. But I've found one, I think it's on timeanddate.com or something like that, where you can choose the months you want to print for the particular years, and it has quite nice size little blocks that you can write in what you have coming up. I've also said there, you might like to time block your weeks as well. I don't tend to do this, although I'm going to try and do it more this year. So time blocking is about setting aside specific blocks for you in your days. So you might have work blocks, you might have exercise blocks, you might have admin blocks, that kind of thing. So this is a bit like taking what I do with my years and months and then blocking it out into weeks and days. So one of my goals for this year is to try and do more, or have set work hours. So my plan is to block out a certain number of hours each day at particular times, where that's my work time, just for a number of reasons, to try and stay on top of, the number of hours that I work each week. So in terms of my own productivity, to say that I've got these hours as work blocks, but also to try and avoid work slipping into other parts of your day. So if you can be really productive in the time blocks that you have set aside for work, then hopefully that's going to help you to prevent work from slipping out into the evenings or at time when there's kids around, when it's harder to get the work done. And you might like to allocate specific tasks to your time blocks. And the reason for this is that sometimes I find it, there's particular things that I don't really want to do. It's better if I just have them in my calendar as a task, and I just have to do it at that time. So having a sort of a deadline in there for yourself that you have to do that, and a bit of time allocated to do that job, makes it a bit easier to get the job done. Like I said, I'm not perfect at this stuff, but these are just some ideas to help you to try and be as productive as possible in this sort of limited time that we often have available to us as mums, and without, because I've made the mistake of this in the past, of letting work sort of start to take over and slip into the evenings and the weekends and that kind of thing. And for me, my preference at least, is to try and keep my work as much as possible to the school day when the boys aren't at home. So, you have to do what works for you, and sometimes it can be, at least for me in the start, I found, particularly during the COVID lockdowns and that kind of thing as well, it was easier for me to work in the evenings when the boys were asleep. So it does very much depend on your availability and what other things you're trying to juggle at the same time. So just do what works for you. It might be that your time blocks are at different times of the day to what mine are. So, do whatever works for you. And just sort of as a reminder, I kind of see quite a lot of productivity type stuff online and in books, and lots of people that seem to have these really, really organized lives, and I don't. So I always just try my best, and so I'm kind of putting this out there as information to help you. I'm sharing some things that work well for me, but just wanted to kind of stress that a lot of this has to be quite fluid as a mum, and I appreciate that. And I just kind of wanted you to know I'm not perfect at any of this, and I don't expect that you will be either. So I'm not wanting to put any additional pressure on you by sharing this information and sort of making out that I've got it all sussed out, because I haven't. But some of this stuff can just really help with being organized. So some of the things that might help you to plan. So one thing I've got there, task identification. So some of those things I've mentioned, so identify life, work, and business tasks. So, it's going to depend a bit on what your commitments are, and, what personal tasks you have, what you have to prioritize, the time that you have available. Some of us will have more time than others, but for me, I've got some non-negotiable things like times to pick the kids up from school. And so my day is limited by those those considerations. And then also, there's probably things that you want to do as well that are not business related. So it might be exercise, it might be housework, it might be grocery shopping. So, different days will look different for you. For me, usually a Monday is the day that I go to the supermarket. So, time has to be allowed, additional time has to be allowed to stop at the supermarket on the way to or from school. So things like that. So it's about being realistic about how much you can get done. And also not sort of being, I don't like to kind of be negative, but I've tried in the past to be over optimistic about what I can get done. And I'm trying now to be a lot more realistic about how many actual work hours I can fit in the day. Because if I do too much, it, along with juggling all of the other things that I have to do, the other commitments I have with the kids, it just pushes me to the point of feeling burnt out. And that's kind of not what this is about. It's about making space to do everything and being realistic about how much time you have to commit to your business as well. One thing I've said there too is identify how long tasks take. So sometimes it can be a bit of a learning curve to understand how much time specific tasks take. So things like invoicing, for example, that can take up quite a lot of your time. So, being realistic about how much time it'll take to do some of those things. If you're doing repetitive work tasks, it's good to take a note of how long it takes to do something. So, if you're doing a certain number of social media posts for someone, say you're doing 10 posts each month for someone's social media account, if you're a social media manager, you might find that takes you 3 hours this time, and then next time it might take you 4 hours, and then another time it might take you 2 hours. So you'll start to understand, well, over time I should allow about 3 hours for this job, or whatever it is that works for you. Similarly to, say you were doing invoicing for someone, you might say, well, each month it takes me 6 hours to do that, and you'll learn over time, okay, so I know around this time of the month I need to allow 6 hours to do the invoicing for Mr. Smith. Things like that, just so that you kind of can help yourself to be as organized as possible, and to plan those tasks at times that are going to work for you. Something that you might like to consider, if it's an option as well, is to see whether there's anything that can be outsourced. So it could be that there's business tasks that you can outsource, that could free up some of your time. So, it might be that you have, someone who could do, like, I use the accounting platform Xero, and it's quite tedious going through and reconciling all the transactions in there. And I keep telling myself that one day I'm going to pay someone to do that. I haven't yet, but that would be the first thing I would outsource, is to get someone to do that job, because probably it would be more cost effective for me actually to just get someone else to do that instead of me trying to do it all myself. So think about whether there's anything that you can cost effectively outsource. Again, often in the beginning we don't do that just to save ourselves some money, but over time you might find, well, my hourly rate is $60 an hour, and I could get an admin person to do that work for $30 an hour. So I actually it'd be worth my while to get a person to do that job for me, so that I can spend that time earning more money, and then it gets rid of a job I don't like. So consider whether that's an option. And again, at the bottom there, I've just put prioritize tasks based on your goals. So, if you've got a particular income goal you need to meet, it might be that you need to, focus on allocating more time for work hours than on cleaning the house. So, you have to learn to prioritize tasks based on goals, or what you need to achieve to finish a particular project. I've had times where I've had to go, well, the reality is that I'm just not going to have time to clean the house this week. So I just accept a lower standard in my home so that I'm able to complete a work project. So it's a bit of a balancing act, as I'm sure all of you will be familiar with being a mum. One of the tasks I have outsourced, which I wanted to tell you about, is that I have outsourced my laundry. So whenever I tell people that, they think it's really glamorous, but it's it's not that expensive, and it saves me hours and hours of time on a job that I really don't like. And I have a laundry service that comes to my house and picks up all of our laundry on a Monday. And then they take it away and they wash it and they fold it. And if you want them to, they can even iron things. And I'm sure they do lots of other things that are wonderful too. But then a couple of days later, they bring the washing back and it's all nicely folded and sorted and clean, and I just have to put it away. And instead of me having to spend, I don't know, hours and hours of time putting loads of washing through and hanging it out to dry and then bringing it in and folding it, all I have to do is put it away. So anything like that you can be more efficient on to free up more time for work. I mean, and if you don't, not in a position where you can pay someone to do some of those tasks, then, you know, it might be that you have to allocate those tasks to somebody else. You know, there might be somebody else in your family who can help you, maybe your partner, maybe, you know, your mum, if your mum's able to help, you know, maybe the kids could do something more to help you free up the time to enable you to just, you know, get some blocks of work time in there. So this is just an example of how you might like to go about doing your task identification. So, you know, you could identify your personal tasks, the things that you need to do and the time they need to take. You know, if those are things that you can outsource, consider outsourcing them. Consider how many work hours you can realistically do each day, because it's going to help you to figure out what client work you can take on. And also remember to allow time for your own admin. So things like invoicing, it's really important to stay on top of that, because that's how you get paid. That's how you keep the pressure off yourself. So I know I've done this myself, where I've got busy doing client work and have got behind on my invoicing. But all that really does is just loads the pressure up on you, because it means that it takes longer for you to get paid. And also it's probably not as good for your clients either, particularly if you go for quite a while without invoicing, because then it doesn't feel, well, it feels more expensive if you get $1,000 bill than if you get 3 smaller ones. So make sure you've got time allocated to allow you to do your admin. And then some of those other things we've talked about in other sessions as well. So your marketing takes time. So figure out if you want to set a time aside weekly to do that. I often find it's more effective to set aside a block of time, you know, maybe once a month, where you can do a whole heap of social media posts. But that social media engagement that I've mentioned, you know, that if that's something you're going to do daily, you know, 5, 10, 15 minutes daily, make sure you've got the time to do that. And, you know, the social media engagement can be something that you do. I tend to try and do it more. I don't really allocate time as such to do it, but it's, you know, I'm thinking rather than scrolling just mindlessly on Facebook, I might rather spend the time to do that, you know, doing the engagement side of things rather than, you know, watching cat videos or something like that. So it doesn't have to be really formal, but try it. You know, you might think, well, once the kids are gone to bed, I'm going to spend 15 minutes engaging in groups before I just do my Netflix or whatever. Doesn't have to be too arduous. But these are just some examples that you might like to include in your schedule. I included this. This came from one of the books that I've read. I think it was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And this is something that you can use to help prioritize your tasks. Again, I mean, I'm not the greatest at doing this, but it's something that I have great intentions of doing, but I think it's helpful to share this. That 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book has some quite good ideas for managing your time. It's quite a intense read, but there is some good material in there. And this is one of the things that I've pulled out because I thought this was quite helpful in terms of prioritizing your tasks. So what they talk about a bit in that book is that a lot of people tend to spend a lot of their time in the not urgent, not important box. Often those are the kinds of things, tasks that are easy to do, but don't necessarily move you forward a lot. But that often means that we delay other tasks, and then those tasks end up in that urgent and important box where we're sort of under pressure to complete them. So we kind of want to try and focus on getting stuff done before it ends up in that urgent, important box. Some things, they might be urgent and important from the very outset, and you have to be able to prioritize them. So it might be, a client has an urgent job that needs to be done straight away. So that goes into that urgent and important box, and you might have to put some of the other things to one side. But you can sort of have a think about anything that you need to do in your week. You might like to try and think about it like this. So what are the urgent and important things that I should prioritize? You might think, well, I'm going to do the urgent and important things on Monday. There might be some things that are important to do, like your social media posts, but they might be not quite as urgent as getting that letter out for a client. There might be things that feel urgent, but are not important. That might be the housework. That might be, doing the laundry. They're things that they feel like they're urgent because they're right in front of you. And, sometimes when we get distracted, those are the things that we go to. I know I do. When I should be working, sometimes I think I'll just empty the dishwasher. Because it'd be way easier for me if that's done before the kids get home. So to me, it's like, it's kind of urgent, but it's not really that important. And there's probably other things that I should be prioritizing more importantly. So if you're interested in that, have a look. You might like to have a read of the book. You might, if you look online, there's quite a lot of information. I'm sure you can find YouTube videos to explain this as well. I thought I would just share this as well. This is another way that you might like to plan your days as well. So this is, if you're getting really into your time blocking, this is what it might look like. So this was one I tried to do when I had a product business, baby business, where I was handcrafting things. I was going to markets, and then I was also just trying to start the freelance mama as well. So I thought I'd share this just as an example of, if you want to really get into your time blocking, this might be what you do. So I don't tend to get into this much detail now. I do from time to time if I'm really having to focus on a particular project. I tend to get I've got like a paper version of this that I write on, just from a stationery shop. It's nothing fancy, with sort of the days of the week on it and time blocks. So I just hand write it on if I'm doing this now. But you can see in here what you might like to do. So I was trying to allow time for checking emails. That can be quite a time suck. So for me, checking emails was important with a product business because, I had to send out products and that kind of thing. Emails, a lot of people say you shouldn't check your emails first thing in the morning, because, you often go down the rabbit hole. So you might spend a lot longer doing that which is probably a less productive task than you might do if you actually just got straight into creating content or something like that. So figure out what works for you. And if you think it's important to check the emails early in the day, it might be that you do that, but for a certain period of time, and then you move on to do something else. You can see in there I've allowed time for things like scheduling posts for social media, time for content creation, so I was hand making a product, so I had to have time for actually sewing and knitting and creating those products. And then also you can see sort of Friday tends for me to feel like a bit of a less productive day. So was the time of day when I was trying to allow time to do my accounting stuff, a bit of time to do the housework for the weekend, and then preparation for markets that tended to be in the weekend as well. So this was just created in Excel. So again, you could quite easily create something quite simple like this for yourself. So I am also going to include an example one in here for you as well. This was one that I made for a blog post that I did quite a long time ago. So I'll include something similar to this in here as well for you to use. So it's just a basic template that you can handwrite on, similar to the one that I would use it. This one doesn't have the times broken down in it, but you can do that yourself as well. So just things like your daily goals. So you might want to put, something you want to achieve each day. And then if there's action steps you need to do, so, like if you need to write a letter for a client on Monday, then, you might like to do a first draft of it. Then you might have to proofread it. Then you might need to send it in draft to the client. Then you might need to finalize it. So, you could break that down into specific action steps. I quite like having action steps because it means I can tick things off. I kind of enjoy that aspect of ticking things off. I've also put there a BHAG. So I came across this in some training I did through work a long time ago, but which is a big, hairy, audacious goal. Apparently I think it's a military term, but it's sort of something that it's going to take a bit of effort to achieve. So, you might have a really big goal and then you can break that down into goals over the course of the week. It might be that you're going to schedule all your social media content for your business page this week. And so, it might be that you then over the course of the week break that down and say, I'm going to do, your goal for Monday is to do 5 posts, and Tuesday you're going to do 3 videos and whatever. So, you figure out what works for you, but I'll include this worksheet as well so that you can use this yourself if you want to, or create your own. I can put it in a Word template, and then you're able just to modify that to suit you. And in fact, I'll include the Excel spreadsheet for you as well, so that you can just amend that to suit what works for you. Okay, so something else that I found really helpful for me as well in business is to have long-term planning. So that's about having a future vision and understanding what you want your business to look like in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or it might be different increments of time. You might have different ideas about how you want to break that down. But the reason why this is really important is that sometimes we kind of get stuck on the here and now and we don't focus on what the long-term vision is. And sometimes it's kind of that longer term vision that gives you the motivation to keep going with the day to day, especially at the start when it's hard and you're not making much progress, or the work's not coming in as fast as you expected. To have that sort of bigger vision helps you to maintain the work in the short term. And often what you'll find, I found it myself, is that over time when you check in with these goals, it's amazing how accurate they can be. So I recently found a worksheet, or which is a piece of paper that we'd done from a course that I did with my husband for our property business. We did the course over 10 years ago, and we set goals in that course, and it was really cool to find that piece of paper and look back and sort of tick through. For us that was financial goals, but to be able to work back through, and at that time we were in a position where we didn't even really know how we were going to achieve those goals. And that's often how it feels like at the start of your business journey is, we had these big financial goals for our property business, and it kind of almost felt unrealistic. Yet when we've reviewed them 10 years later, it was quite amazing to see how many of them we've ticked off. And they often say that it's sometimes we're a bit unrealistic about what we can achieve this week, but we can find that in the longer term we can actually achieve a lot more. So it's pretty cool to do the time to take some time to do this long-term planning. I've also found that quite helpful to support that with creating a bit of a vision board. So I like vision boards. I like visual things, and so on my wall, I've got a vision of what life is going to look like in various different aspects, including business. So, you might want to make a vision board with some keywords and some goals up on the wall for you for what your business is going to look like. So, yeah, I mean, spend some time doing that. I am not a huge fan of doing really detailed business plans for this kind of thing. There's lots of templates online to do business plans. You might like to do that if that's your thing. I have done a few of these in the past, and I've spent far too much time doing that part of the planning rather than sort of getting on and getting the work done. And the only problem I would say with, it's as much as it's good to plan, is that if you spend too much time planning the perfect business and getting really detailed about, all the things you're going to do, you tend to spend more time planning than actually sort of getting into the business. So it's as much, as I think it's a worthwhile exercise to do. I guess what I'm saying is just to not spend months and months or weeks and weeks of time writing a 50-page business plan and in a lot of detail for everything that's going to happen over the next 10 years, kind of like a manual. Do some work on it, but don't let this phase of planning stop you from moving forward with your business. So I also wanted to talk about some of the practical stuff. So I think a really important thing to do is to manage expectations. And there's a combination of things you want to consider there. So managing your clients' expectations and managing your household expectations. And as a mum, it's a bit of a balancing act for those things. So in terms of managing client expectations, be realistic about the timeframes. So, hopefully your clients will understand that you're a mum and that you've got a lot on. But for yourself, be realistic about what you can achieve with all the other things you've got to juggle. And sometimes it's also a good thing to do to factor in some time for the fact that as mums, often we're not 100% productive. So I've made the mistake in the past of overcommitting to work, and then I've had children homesick all week, and that makes it really hard and really stressful for you. So I think it's always a good idea to just factor in some extra time to allow for that. But then also, if you have to make it clear to your clients, that I can't get that job done by Friday because it's school holidays. I can't. I'm absolutely really excited about your project, and I really want to do that for you. But if we're going to work together, you're going to have to understand that I'm unavailable for the next 2 weeks, but I will happily do that for you the following week, or something along those lines. So be upfront with your clients about it. It might be that this, it doesn't work because you have to be realistic about your, what you can do. But a lot of the time people are really understanding. I think they're even more understanding now, post-COVID, than what people were in the past. The other thing around that too, for yourself as well and for your clients, is to understand how long jobs will take. So sometimes you'll have a better idea than the client will about how long it might take to get something done. So just about communicating the number of hours that it's going to take. And sometimes it's also communicating that, while the job might take 5 hours, you don't have 5 hours today to do that job. So that job might be, you have to do 5 hours across the course of this week. So making that really clear to your client. And as I said, I think it's always a good idea to build in a bit of a buffer for some of those things as well. And then the other thing that I think I really wanted to focus on too was managing your household expectations. So, as I've said, for me, sometimes I've had to let the household work or the housework slip to be able to get things done. I've had to have times where my husband's had to do, take on more work so that I can do a work project. Sometimes I've had to travel. And so, where I'm normally the one who picks up the children, he's had to change his work schedule to make it his week, he has to pick up the kids that week. So you just have to be clear about those expectations. So, if you're starting a business and you have a family and you've got, lots of other commitments, it's really important to communicate about these things. For me, a big thing is, having that calendar in the kitchen. And as soon as I know about work time, work travel time, work commitments, things that are after hours, to put that up there so that everybody knows, where we are, who's doing what. So I put the same thing up in terms of childcare. So if it's school holidays and I'm working, on the calendar, I'll have that mum's having the kids on Wednesday, they're going to school holiday program on Tuesday and Thursday, and then it's really clear to everybody, where everybody stands. The kids understand what is needed. They understand where they're going to go, so we get less tantrums, and the adults all understand what the expectations are of how the week's going to look. And I think it's important to have these conversations sooner rather than later. So like leaving it later is just going to make it harder. So, if you want to start a business, it's just really good to get clear. Like I had this, when I went back to work full time, we had to get really, really organized around. We used to, when I was working full time, we had a cleaner on a Monday, so it meant on a Sunday night we all had to pull together as a family and tidy the house, get it all ready, so that when the cleaner came on a Monday, she didn't have to trip over toys. And I find sort of with working from home and having peaks and troughs in terms of work, sometimes when I'm really busy, like I said, things have to slide. And so, just being clear, look, realistically, I'm not going to be able to do this week. Do we need to get a cleaner? If you've got a lot of work on, sometimes it's worth having those conversations and saying, okay, well, I'm going to earn a lot more this week. We can afford to get a cleaner to come in and do a one-off clean up the house if that's going to take pressure off. When I went back to full-time work, we had a cleaner come, I think it was, I can't remember if it was every week or every fortnight, but regularly, so that we knew that that was dealt with. It was something that we didn't have to negotiate between us, because you might find that that's something that if you've been the one, because you've been home minding kids, who's been doing the housework for the last 5 years, and everybody's got used to you doing the housework, but you don't feel like you can anymore, then it might be worth your while finding out how much it will cost to get a cleaner, because you might say, well, okay, well, now I'm doing this number of hours of work each week, bringing in this amount of money. It's just going to really take the pressure off everyone if we do that. So have those conversations and figure out what works for you as a family. So some handy organizational tools. I've mentioned previously having a calendar app with reminders on your phone. So that works great for home and for work as well. So I've had things where I've put reminders on my husband's phone so that he knows that he has to pick the kids up. Send calendar invites from my I've got a work email. So send him a calendar invite through that to his work email, so he knows, on Friday he's got to pick the kids up. There's lots of different tools that you can use. So some people use Trello for planning. That's quite good. They've got different things you can use in terms of planning for social media and those kind of things. Have a look at it. I don't tend to use that so much, but that is one option. One I haven't put in there is Asana. Asana is a good one that I do use a lot. It's a project management tool. You can have reminders in there. It's really handy because you can invite people into it. It's got a really good free option. I think it's actually better than Trello. You can have reminders, you can have email reminders and things like that. I think it can sync to your calendar as well. I'm not certain. I haven't got it syncing to my calendar, but it does. I have an app on my phone, so it does send me reminders on my phone. And yeah, you can add other people to your tasks, and if you've got people working with you, like you might have a virtual assistant who's helping you, you can add them into it, and then they can, you can allocate tasks to them, and that's a really good one. So that's Asana. Dropbox is wonderful. I use Dropbox for everything, personal and work related. It's just if you haven't come across it before, I'm sure most of you will have, but it's just like a cloud-based storage system for storing files. It's also really good for sharing files, sharing larger files that you can't email. Genius Scan. Now this has been a really wonderful one for me. I think it's a paid app. I think it was about $20, and it's like a scanner on your phone. So I strongly dislike having excess amounts of paper around. So every time someone gives me paper, I scan it using Genius Scan and upload it to my Dropbox. So that means that, if someone gives me a receipt for something for my business, I scan it, upload it to Dropbox, and I even have a folder on my Dropbox for my accountant. So, if I make a donation, I'll take a scan with Genius Scan of the receipt, upload it to my accounting file for that year, and then it's already in there when my accountant has to have it. If you use software like Xero, you can upload your receipts directly into your Xero if you want to. But anything like bank statements or even the kids' artworks, I just scan them, put them in the Dropbox, and then I don't have to have the piece of paper cluttering up my desk. So highly recommend that as an option for minimizing the amount of paperwork that you have to do. Another one I've used before is called Commit to 3. It's kind of like an accountability app, so you can get that and you can have an accountability buddy where you both have the app, and so you put on your tasks. So you might say, today I'm going to schedule 3 social media posts. I'm going to finish the letter that I have to send to Mrs. Jones, and I'm going to send out my invoices for this month. And then your friend might have this app on their phone as well. They're going to walk 10,000 steps, they're going to pay their bills, and they're going to, I don't know, wash the car. And so it gives you prompts to remind you to do the things, and then your friend can prompt you and you can encourage each other. And, when you tick them off, it's kind of like quite a fun thing to do with a friend. Or you can just have an accountability buddy that's just somebody who you text or you stay in contact with otherwise, to help keep each other accountable for your business or other goals. So that's just something kind of fun to do. Wunderlist, that's another one that it's kind of more of a home, well, you can use it as a home management tool. So, you can have your shopping list in there. You can send reminders to your husband of the things he has to do. You can put things in like picking up the laundry, things like that if you need to. So it's just another app to help you manage your time. So just figure out what ones work for you. And Later. So Later is a social media scheduling tool. There's lots of different ones. There's Later, there's Planoly, there's the Facebook or Meta has its own scheduling tool in there. Social media scheduling apps are really, really handy. Play around with a few of them, do some research. There's lots of blog posts about different social media scheduling apps. I've found that the Meta one is quite good for Facebook and Instagram. I think they might link to something else as well. I'm not sure, but I use it for Facebook and Instagram. But what that does is it enables you to set aside some time, say at the end of the month, and schedule posts for the next 30 days. And that just saves you the hassle of having to every single day go in and into your social media apps and remember to post. So you can set it all up. Lots of them have free options. Some of the paid ones are really amazing, but the free ones are absolutely fine. The Facebook and Instagram one through Meta is really efficient. And yeah, I mean, for me, it actually makes me do it. So I find it a lot harder to go in every day and do it, and a lot more distracting. Whereas if I've set aside a block of time to just do those posts and schedule them all, and you can, set a time that works well for your audience. So, if through your engagement, your insights and things on your social media pages, that your audience is much more likely to be online at 5 p.m, then you can schedule your post to go live at 5 p.m. So big time saver, I find, with having an app like Later to manage your social media. There's a few other things there you might like to read for further reading. The 4-Hour Work Week is a good one that I really enjoyed. So there's lots and lots of books about how to plan as well. Okay, so that was a long session, but I hope that you find it really helpful to get yourself organized. So now we're going to move on to Module 4, Lesson 2, which is all about mindset and accountability. So I will see you over in the next video.